Illinois is a state of bustling cities, quiet towns, and old railways that stretch across the land. But hidden beneath the clatter of modern trains and the chatter of passengers lies a world of shadows and whispers. Tonight, we will explore 25 of Illinois' most haunted train stations, where ghost passengers appear, footsteps echo in empty corridors, and phantom trains arrive long after the last schedule has ended. From Chicago to small Midwestern towns, each station holds stories of tragedy, unexplained disappearances, and spirits that linger, waiting for journeys that never end. As we step onto the platforms, keep your eyes open and your senses sharp. The shadows may move on their own, and a passenger from the past may just take a seat beside you. Union Station in Chicago stands as one of the city's most iconic landmarks. A grand Beaux-Arts masterpiece of marble columns, soaring ceilings, and endless platforms stretching beneath the heart of downtown. By day, it hums with life commuters hurrying from train to taxi, travelers dragging suitcases across polished floors, and voices echoing beneath the towering Great Hall. Workers maintaining the rails at night have reported seeing figures standing perfectly still in the dim light, wearing outdated suits, hats, and long coats. These silhouettes appear like passengers from the 1920s or 1930s, their faces pale and blurry in the darkness. When approached, the figures vanish, dissolving into the steam rising from the tracks. Some say these spirits look lost, confused, or determined, as if they are still waiting for trains that departed decades ago. One well-known story comes from a longtime railroad employee who was performing a routine inspection one night. He spotted a woman dressed in early 20th century clothing, long skirt, lace gloves, and a small cloche hat standing alone near an empty track. She looked solid, real, as though she belonged there. The employee approached her to ask if she needed help or had gotten lost in the labyrinth of platforms. But as he neared, she turned her head, revealing an expression of deep sadness, and silently stepped backward into the shadows. The worker hurried forward, but she had vanished completely, leaving only the faint scent of old perfume lingering in the air. Union Station's ghost stories don't stop with its passengers. Some claim that spectral trains themselves appear late at night. Engineers who have worked the graveyard shift tell of lights appearing on empty tracks, headlamps glowing faintly, flickering like lanterns, fighting against the dark. These ghostly trains roll silently into the station, their outlines hazy and dim. No sound of metal on metal accompanies them. No rush of air, no vibration underfoot. The lights glide past, fade, and then disappear altogether. By the time anyone reaches the tracks, there is nothing, no train, no explanation, not even a change in the air. Older Chicagoans whisper that these trains might be tied to tragic moments in the city's history. Union Station has seen its share of sorrow, soldiers departing for distant wars, lost travelers never returning home, and accidents that left their mark on the rails. Some believe the ghost trains carry the memories of those who never made it to their destinations, forever circling the station in a loop of time. Others say that trains are omens, appearing before major events or accidents. Their dim lights a quiet warning that something significant is about to occur. Inside the station itself, the atmosphere can shift without warning. Visitors describe sudden temperature drops, brief icy waves moving across the marble floor, as though someone unseen has brushed past. In the quietest corners, whispers drift through the air, too soft to decipher, but too clear to be mistaken for simple echoes. Some people claim the voices sound like conversations from another era, snippets of dialogue from travelers who once stood exactly where they are now. A few visitors have felt cold hands touch their shoulders, only to turn around and find no one close enough to have reached them. The Great Hall, with its massive Corinthian columns and iconic skylight, is perhaps the most haunted part of Union Station. Once bustling with crowds, it now serves as a quieter, more contemplative space. But in the stillness of early morning or late night, shadows move along the staircases, gliding silently across the upper balcony. Several photographers capturing the hall's stunning architecture have reviewed their images later, only to find faint outlines of people who were not present when the photos were taken. These spectral forms often appear blurred or partially transparent, as though only half existing in the world of the living. There is also the legend of the late conductor, a spirit some believe still walks the platforms, checking imaginary watches and scanning the tracks for approaching trains. Described as an older man with a cap and a stern expression, the conductor is said to appear during the quietest hours, his form as clear as any living person from a short distance. Witnesses claim he moves with purpose, marching along the platform edge before stopping abruptly, nodding as though acknowledging an approaching train, and then fading from sight. Those who've seen him say he never seems threatening, only determined, committed to a duty he never abandoned, even in death. Despite its bustling modern life, Union Station holds on to its past with an uncanny grip. It is a place where the boundary between present and memory feels thin, where people from another century might be standing just a few steps away, unseen but not entirely gone. The station's vastness, its stone walls, and its endless corridors seem to amplify the presence of those who once passed through, creating a space where time moves strangely, looping back on itself and allowing the spirits of the past to linger. For every traveler who walks through Union Station today, there is a moment of faint sound, a flicker of movement, a cold breath along the neck when the history of the place reaches out. Whether it is the whisper of a lost passenger, the steady pace of phantom footsteps, or the dim glow of a ghostly train sliding through the darkness, Union Station remains a gateway, not just for the living but also for the restless spirits who still wander its platforms. LaSalle Street Station in Chicago has long been a place where past and present seem to run on parallel tracks, sometimes overlapping in ways that defy explanation. Once one of the busiest passenger hubs in the Midwest, it saw countless travelers pass through its platforms, soldiers heading to war, businessmen in neatly pressed suits, families embarking on long journeys. Today, though it still serves commuters, the station carries a quieter, almost ghostly air during its off hours. When the crowds thin and the lights dim, visitors say the echoes of history rise to the surface, filling the empty spaces with unsettling reminders of the lives that moved through its halls long ago. Many describe hearing the distinct calls of old conductors, their voices sharp and authoritative, echoing from one end of the platform to the other. These shouts, "all aboard," or "final call for departure," seem to ring out from nowhere. The station's loudspeakers remain silent, and no living conductor stands in sight. Some commuters have paused mid-step, convinced that someone behind them had spoken, only to turn and find themselves alone. The voices appear suddenly, carrying a strange, faraway quality, as though they are being broadcast from another time entirely. The disembodied calls often come during the late evening, just as the last trains for the night roll out and the station begins to settle into a hush. A few regular travelers have confessed that they deliberately avoid lingering around this time. They say the atmosphere changes, the air feels heavier, the shadows grow longer, and the sense of being watched becomes hard to ignore. Even footsteps seem to echo differently, as if joining a chorus of other steps that originate from nowhere visible. Shadowy shapes are also frequently reported along the deserted platforms. These figures appear as dark silhouettes, sometimes standing perfectly still at the far end of the tracks, other times moving with slow, deliberate steps. Witnesses often describe them as wearing hats or long coats, attire reminiscent of travelers from the station's early years in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The forms drift in and out of view, never staying long enough for anyone to make out a clear face. When approached, they dissolve into nothing, almost like smoke dissipating in the air. Railway employees working overnight shifts have spoken quietly about these sightings. Some say they've seen what looks like a man crouched near the tracks, only for the shape to rise and glide effortlessly across the platform before vanishing. Others have reported a woman in a long dress standing beneath one of the old lamps, her figure still and ghost-like. She disappears the moment anyone tries to get close. These shadowy apparitions leave behind an eerie silence, no footsteps, no rustling, just a lingering impression that someone was there only moments before. But the most unsettling legend tied to LaSalle Street Station involves the phantom train, said to arrive at the exact moment of midnight. This story has circulated among night workers for decades, whispered like a warning passed down from one shift to the next. According to countless witnesses, the event follows a consistent pattern. As midnight approaches, the station becomes unnaturally quiet. Even the hum of the city outside seems to fade for a brief moment, as though the world holds its breath. Then, it begins with a distant rumble, soft, almost like a memory of sound, rather than the real thing. Lights flicker along the platform, glowing faintly before returning to normal. A cool breeze sweeps through the station, inexplicable in the closed space. And right as the clock strikes 12, a train appears on one of the old tracks, even when the rails are scheduled to be empty. But this train is not like any modern locomotive. Witnesses describe it as an older model, something straight out of the early 1900s, with a dark metal exterior, glowing lantern-like headlights, and windows that shimmer rather than shine. Its arrival is silent, impossibly so. No clatter of wheels, no grinding metal, no echoing brakes. Instead, it seems to glide smoothly into place, stopping with eerie precision at the edge of the platform. Those who have seen the phantom train say it lingers for only 30 seconds at most. During that time, shadowy figures can be seen inside passengers, sitting in rigid, ghostly outlines, some with hats tipped low, others gazing forward as if waiting for a journey that never ends. A conductor-like figure sometimes appears at the front, raising one hand as if preparing to call out instructions. But no sound escapes him. His mouth moves in silence. Then, without warning, the train begins to fade. The lights dim, the silhouettes blur, and the entire structure dissolves into the air. Within moments, it is gone completely, leaving only the faintest smell of coal or old metal lingering behind. For the workers who witness it, the experience is both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling, a surreal reminder that some parts of the station's history refuse to stay buried. There are several theories about the midnight train. Some believe it is tied to an accident from decades past, a train that derailed before reaching the station, forever cursed to complete its final journey at midnight. Others say it is a spectral reenactment of the last departure taken by a group of soldiers during World War II, many of whom never returned home. A few believe the phantom train serves as a reminder of unfinished journeys, carrying the spirits of those who once passed through LaSalle Street Station and still linger, unwilling or unable to move on. No matter the explanation, the legend endures, strengthened by each new account from commuters, workers, or late-night wanderers who swear they have witnessed the impossible. LaSalle Street Station, with its long platforms and echoes of bygone eras, has become a place where the past brushes against the present. It carries the weight of thousands of stories of reunions and farewells, hope and heartbreak, beginnings and endings. And in the quiet moments of night, those stories seem to rise up from the shadows, embodied in the spectral whispers, the moving silhouettes, and the mysterious train that comes not for the living, but for the memories that refuse to leave. For anyone passing through after dark, LaSalle Street Station is more than a commuter stop. It is a crossroads of time, where the living share space with echoes of another world, and where the midnight train may glide silently into view, reminding all who witness it that some journeys never truly end. Central Station in Springfield carries an atmosphere unlike any other place in the city. By daylight, it functions as any ordinary transit hub. Passengers come and go, trains rumble in and out, and the steady rhythm of travel fills the air. But when the day winds down and the station empties, something different lingers in the echoing corridors. Visitors who wander through during quieter hours often speak of strange sounds, brief glimpses of figures from another era, and the unmistakable sensation that the station is never truly empty. It is a place where time seems to overlap, where the memories of the past still walk the platforms. The most common report begins with sound specifically, the unmistakable noise of luggage wheels rolling along the floor. Many travelers have paused mid-step, puzzled by the rhythmic clatter of suitcase wheels echoing through corridors that appear empty. The sound seems to move with purpose, as though someone is rushing to catch a departing train. It approaches quickly, grows louder, and then drifts away into silence. Some claim they even hear the clicking of heels accompanying the rolling luggage, like a hurried traveler making their way through the station's network of hallways. One visitor described waiting late at night in one of the station's older wings, where the lights flickered softly overhead. He heard the rattling of wheels behind him, loud enough to assume someone was about to pass. When he stepped aside to let them through, no one appeared. The sound continued forward, right past him, the wheels clicking across the tile floor, as if an invisible traveler were dragging a suitcase that no longer existed. The sound rounded a corner and abruptly stopped, leaving only stillness behind. Others report hearing luggage rolling across the main concourse, where the high ceiling magnifies every noise. Even when the station is nearly deserted, the clattering echoes persist, moving unpredictably, sometimes circling the room or heading toward closed-off platforms. The phenomenon is so consistent that late-night maintenance crews have grown used to it. Some simply shake their heads and say the station is full of travelers who missed their final trains long ago. More unsettling are the sightings of shadowy figures, always women, always dressed in early 20th century attire. These apparitions are said to appear with gentle, drifting motion, their long dresses swaying as they walk purposefully toward the platforms. They carry no luggage, yet their posture suggests they are preparing to board a train for a long journey. Witnesses describe them as being partially transparent, their silhouettes clear but their faces blurred or hidden beneath hats. One of the most frequently seen spirits is a woman wearing a long dark skirt and a fitted jacket, her hair pinned neatly beneath a round hat. She has been spotted near the old ticket counters, standing silently with her gloved hands folded in front of her. She appears to be waiting for someone or something. When approached, she turns slightly, as if acknowledging the presence of the living, but then fades into the wall behind her, leaving no trace she was ever there. Another commonly reported figure is a young woman in a light-colored dress, perhaps in her early 20s. Witnesses say she walks with a sense of urgency, glancing toward the platforms as though fearing she might miss her train. Her form seems more solid than others, almost real, until the moment she reaches the edge of the platform. There, she pauses, looks down the tracks as if searching for a train that should be arriving, and then vanishes instantly, dissolving into thin air. These spirits are not limited to the platforms. Several visitors have seen them drifting through the station's older corridors, particularly the hallway that once led to the women's waiting room, a relic from a time when men and women often traveled separately. The atmosphere in this area feels heavy, almost charged, like the air before a storm. Footsteps echo here, even when no one is present, and the faint scent of old-fashioned perfume occasionally wafts through, lingering just long enough to be noticeable. Security staff, who patrol the station during late-night hours, share their own experiences. Some have monitored the cameras only to see shadowy outlines moving across the concourse, appearing for a few seconds before evaporating completely. Others have walked down a corridor to find a woman in period clothing standing ahead of them. By the time they reach the spot, she is gone, leaving only cold air and a lingering sense that someone had been present moments before. One guard recalled an encounter where he heard luggage wheels rolling behind him. When he turned, he saw a faint outline of a woman, dressed in early 1900s attire, pulling a suitcase with metal wheels. She walked toward the platform without acknowledging him, gliding with an unnatural smoothness. Before he could call out, her figure blurred, flickered, and vanished entirely. She left no footsteps, no shadow, no sound, just the memory of movement in a silent hall. Locals have long speculated about the origins of these spirits. Some believe they are tied to tragic journeys, women who may have lost loved ones in wartime departures or who awaited trains that never came. Central Station once served as a major point of farewell during several wars, and many families endured heartbreaking goodbyes within its walls. Others suggest the station's long history of bustling life and emotional farewells has imprinted itself on the building, leaving behind echoes of travelers who passed through during moments of great hope or sorrow. There is also a popular legend about a young woman who was supposed to reunite with her fiancé returning from overseas in the early 1900s. According to the story, she waited on the platform for hours, unaware that he had never made it home. Some think her spirit is the one seen pacing the tracks, still searching for the train that never arrived. Despite the haunting atmosphere, there is nothing malevolent about the apparitions of Central Station. They seem lost in time, focused on their own journeys, rather than the living who cross their paths. The echoes of luggage wheels, the drifting silhouettes, and the soft traces of perfume all suggest that the station remains a place where memories linger, looping endlessly through its corridors. To walk through Central Station after dark is to step into a layered world, one where the present brushes gently against the past, where the echoes of vanished travelers continue to roam, and where the shadows of early 20th century women glide gracefully toward platforms that no longer exist. In the quiet hours, the station feels alive with unseen footsteps and ghostly journeys, as if history itself refuses to leave the tracks behind. Rock Island Station in Peoria stands as a quiet reminder of a time when locomotives were the lifeline of America's heartland. The old brick structure, once alive with bustling travelers and the thunder of arriving trains, now carries a different kind of life, slow, lingering, and unnervingly still. Though the station no longer sees the constant activity it once did, visitors insist that not everyone who passed through its doors has truly left. Some say the spirits of travelers lost in tragic accidents still linger, bound to the platforms and halls where their final journeys began or ended. The first signs of haunting often come in the form of faint cries drifting through the air, soft, distant, and almost impossible to pinpoint. These cries don't always sound like screams of pain or terror. Sometimes they resemble calls for help, whispered pleas carried by an invisible breeze. People walking through the station's quieter areas have paused abruptly, convinced someone nearby needed assistance. Yet when they search, they find only empty benches and darkened corners. Some report the cries echoing through the long-abandoned waiting rooms, fading just as quickly as they begin. A former employee described hearing what sounded like a child crying late one night as he finished locking up. The sound came from the direction of the old platform, a place where no one had reason to be at that hour. When he approached, the crying stopped abruptly. He stepped outside, scanning the dimly lit tracks, but found nothing but stillness. As he turned to go back inside, he heard the soft sobbing again, this time behind him. When he spun around, the platform was empty. The employee left quickly and refused to work alone at night again. Shadowy figures sitting silently on benches are another common sight reported by visitors. These apparitions appear in brief glimpses, dark outlines that resemble men, women, or even children waiting patiently as if for a train that never comes. Witnesses say these forms sit with perfect stillness, their heads lowered or turned toward the tracks. Their clothing seems outdated, blending into the shadows like memories frozen in time. When approached, the figures fade into darkness, leaving behind a coldness in the air and a feeling that someone had been there only moments before. One of the earliest and most persistent stories involves a man in a long coat who sits on the same bench near the station's west platform. Travelers who spot him describe him as tall, with his hat pulled low over his face. He never stands, never moves, and never responds when spoken to. But those who get close enough say they feel an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if the man is carrying the weight of a final goodbye he never had the chance to say. The moment anyone steps within a few feet of him, he vanishes, leaving only the faint outline of where he once sat. There are also tales of a woman in a long dress, seen pacing slowly along the platform's edge. She walks with a noticeable limp and occasionally stops to peer down the track, as if waiting for someone who should have arrived long ago. A number of visitors have tried speaking to her, thinking she might be a reenactor or someone in costume for a local event. But when they get near her, she dissolves into the darkness, leaving behind a faint whisper of fabric rustling in the breeze. Perhaps the most chilling accounts revolve around phantom trains, ghostly locomotives that appear without warning, empty of any living passengers. These trains glide silently along the tracks, their headlights dim and flickering like old lanterns fighting to stay lit. They make no sound, no metallic screech of wheels, no rumble through the ground. Witnesses say they simply materialize in the distance, roll slowly into view, and then disappear as though swallowed by the night. One local historian recounted an encounter during an overnight photography session at the station. While adjusting his camera on the platform, he noticed a faint glow on the tracks. Thinking it was an oncoming maintenance vehicle, he stepped back toward the wall, but as the light grew closer, he realized it had no source, no engine, no car, no shape. It was just a soft, golden glow moving steadily toward him. Then, without warning, the entire outline of an old Rock Island passenger train came into view. The cars were translucent, shimmering in the air like reflections on water. As it passed, he could see the silhouettes of passengers inside, motionless, staring forward, unblinking. Within seconds, the train reached the end of the platform, flickered, and vanished completely. The historian packed his equipment and left immediately, shaken to the core. The origin of these hauntings is tied to several tragic accidents that occurred decades ago. Old newspapers tell of derailments on the Rock Island line, storms that swept trains off schedule, and collisions that claimed the lives of passengers who never had the chance to reach their destinations. Some believe the spirits caught in these disasters returned to the station, the last familiar place they knew. Their journeys were interrupted, and their souls remain in a perpetual state of waiting, searching for the trains they were meant to board or the loved ones they never reunited with. In addition to the cries and shadows, there are also reports of sudden cold spots that drift through the hallways, even during warm months. Visitors describe feeling a chill sweep over them, as if someone walked right past, accompanied by the faint smell of coal smoke or old leather luggage. At times, lights flicker inexplicably, and the sound of footsteps echoes along empty corridors. These footsteps often come in pairs, suggesting to people walking side by side. Some believe they belong to travelers from long ago, still moving through the station together, unaware that their journey ended a lifetime before. The station's haunting presence has captured the imagination of locals and paranormal investigators alike. Though many have explored the site with cameras, recorders, and temperature sensors, nothing definitive has ever been proven. Yet the stories continue, growing with each new witness who steps inside and encounters something they cannot explain. Rock Island Station in Peoria remains a place where the past refuses to stay silent. The cries of lost travelers, the silent shadows on benches, and the ghostly arrival of empty trains all suggest that time here moves strangely, looping back on itself and replaying moments of tragedy and longing. For those who visit, the station offers a glimpse into a world where the living and the dead share the same platforms, each waiting for a train that may never arrive. Joliet Union Station in Joliet stands as a landmark of another eerie architectural gem with towering arches, stone walls, and a lingering echo of the bustling energy that once filled its halls. While parts of the building have been restored and repurposed, an abandoned section in the station's older wing remains untouched, locked away behind rusted doors and cracked windows. It is in this forgotten portion of the station that the atmosphere shifts from nostalgic to unsettling. Visitors, maintenance workers, and the occasional urban explorer all describe the same unnerving feeling, the sense that someone or something is moving within those long, dark corridors. Shadow figures are the most frequently reported phenomenon in this area. They appear as tall, vaguely human shapes, pacing silently through the hallways as though trapped in an endless loop. Witnesses often see them from the corner of their eye, only for the figures to vanish the moment they turn their head. Others have caught clearer glimpses, dark silhouettes, gliding slowly across open doorways, stopping for a moment as if listening, then disappearing into the gloom. Some shadows seem to stretch unnaturally long, bending around corners as if made of smoke rather than solid form. A maintenance worker described entering the abandoned section late one afternoon to check on a possible leak. As he walked down the long central corridor, he noticed movement ahead of him, a tall, lanky figure standing still at the far end. Thinking someone had trespassed inside, he called out, but the figure didn't respond. It simply turned and began walking away with strangely smooth movements, as though floating just above the ground. When the worker hurried forward to confront the intruder, the figure passed through a closed door without making a sound. The worker left immediately, shaken and unwilling to go back alone. Urban explorers who snuck into the station's restricted areas report seeing multiple shadowy forms pacing in different directions. Some wander back and forth as if searching for something they can no longer find. Others appear to follow the old train platform routes, gliding toward where the rails once ran before fading into thin air. The abandoned corridors hold a cold, stale air, and the sound of footsteps sometimes echoes from empty rooms, matching the double rhythm of someone walking just out of sight. Adding to the eerie atmosphere are the phantom whistles that pierce the silence at odd hours. These whistles are unmistakably those of older steam locomotives, loud, piercing, and filled with a haunting, drawn-out tone. They often sound long after the station has closed for the night, echoing across the surrounding streets and through the abandoned hallways. People passing by on late-night walks have paused, confused, wondering if a historic train event is taking place. But the tracks are empty, and no trains are scheduled. One local resident said she hears the whistle around 2 a.m. several times a month. It always starts softly, like a distant call, then grows louder, as if a train is approaching at full speed. The sound crescendos, and then suddenly cuts off, leaving a heavy silence behind. Curiously, it never triggers vibrations, engine noise, or the metallic clatter expected from a real locomotive. It is simply the whistle, disembodied and impossible to trace. Inside the station's abandoned wing, phantom whistles become even more chilling. Investigators have recorded the unmistakable echo of a train approaching, the rhythmic clanking and the deep rumble of wheels rolling across iron rails. Yet when they rush to the nearest window, the tracks are empty and still. The sounds seem to originate from thin air, playing out like a memory stuck on repeat. Several witnesses report a specific sequence. First, the whistle, sharp and urgent. Then the vibration of approaching wheels. And finally, footsteps. Some claim to hear a man's voice calling out station announcements in a muffled, far-off tone. Though the words are indistinct, the cadence resembles the authoritative calls of conductors from decades past. One guard working a night shift experienced this firsthand. He was performing his routine sweep of the main lobby when he suddenly heard the sound of a train braking hard on the tracks behind the building. The screeching metal made him jump, and he rushed toward the door, expecting to find an unscheduled locomotive or an emergency. Instead, he found total darkness. Moments later, he heard footsteps approaching from behind. When he turned, a tall, shadowy figure stood in the corridor, its outline flickering like a candle flame. It remained still for several seconds before drifting backward into the darkness and disappearing. Another eerie tale involves a couple who visited the station to take photographs of the historic architecture. While exploring the areas near the abandoned wing, they heard the unmistakable blast of a whistle from inside the building. Thinking a reenactment or performance was occurring, they followed the sound down a wide hallway. The whistle grew louder as they walked, guiding them deeper inside. But as they rounded a corner, the noise abruptly stopped. The couple found themselves standing in front of a sealed metal door, beyond which no one had entered in years. As they turned to leave, they noticed a shadowy form standing at the far end of the hallway, slowly drifting closer until it dissolved into the wall. The origins of Joliet Union Station's hauntings are tied to several tragedies that occurred along the nearby rail lines. Historical accounts describe derailments, platform accidents, and even fatal slips during icy winters. Many believe the spirits pacing the corridors belong to travelers who never made it onto their trains or workers who lost their lives on the job. Their routines, trapped in time, continue endlessly walking corridors they once patrolled, listening for trains that never arrive, and replaying the final seconds of journeys cut short. Despite its eerie reputation, Joliet Union Station retains a quiet beauty. The stone arches and towering ceilings whisper stories of an age when train travel was grand, emotional, and filled with anticipation. But in the forgotten, abandoned wing, the echoes of that era linger in darker forms. Shadow figures continue their pacing, phantom whistles break the silence, and the sounds of approaching trains haunt the empty platforms for those who dare to wander close. The station offers a chilling reminder that some journeys never truly end and some passengers never leave their train behind. Englewood Station in Chicago stands as a silent reminder of a time when rail travel shaped the rhythm of the city. Decades have passed since its final trains departed, yet the structure remains, a weathered monument of brick and steel, holding on to memories long forgotten by the living. Today, those who dare to walk its abandoned platforms and crumbling hallways speak of sights and sounds that do not belong to an empty station. They claim that although the living have abandoned Englewood Station, the dead seem unwilling to let it go. The station sits partially swallowed by overgrown weeds and rusted tracks, surrounded by the hum of distant city life. On the outside, it looks like any other abandoned rail terminal: shattered windows, faded signage, and platforms slowly giving way to time. But the moment visitors step inside, the air changes. The temperature drops, the silence deepens, and the atmosphere feels heavy, as if something unseen is watching from the shadows. Many have said that Englewood Station feels like a place frozen between worlds, one where the past hasn't fully released its grip. One of the most commonly reported experiences at Englewood Station is the sudden sound of footsteps. Visitors describe walking through the empty concourse only to hear the distinct echo of shoes on tile directly behind them. The footsteps match their pace, speeding up, slowing down, and stopping when they do. But when they turn to confront the source, the corridor is always empty. Some believe these ghostly footsteps belong to long-departed commuters who once hurried across the station. During their daily routines, forever repeating motions ingrained into the very walls of the building. Others speak of shadowy figures, visible through the station's broken windows. These shapes appear in the reflection of glass panes or linger just beyond the corners of vision. Many describe them as silhouettes of men and women dressed in clothing from the early 20th century, complete with hats, coats, and luggage in hand. These figures seem to stand still, observing quietly, before vanishing into thin air. A few brave explorers have attempted to approach them, only to watch the figures fade like smoke before they could take a single step closer. One eerie detail that visitors find particularly unsettling involves the station's old platforms. Despite being closed for decades, people claim they still see ghostly passengers waiting, as though trains might arrive at any moment. Some appear seated on long, decaying benches. Others stand at the very edge of the platform, staring down the empty tracks. Witnesses describe these apparitions as strangely calm, almost peaceful, yet unmistakably otherworldly. They never speak, never acknowledge the living, they simply wait. Late-night explorers often report the sound of distant train whistles cutting through the quiet. These whistles are unlike the modern ones heard in the city. They carry the deep, resonant tone of locomotives from another era. The sound comes from nowhere visible, echoing through the station, before fading away into silence. Some say that just before the whistle dies, they feel a sudden gust of cold wind sweep across the tracks, as if a train has just passed by. But the rails remain empty, untouched, and silent. The windows of Englewood Station hold their own mysteries. Many visitors have described seeing pale faces peering out from the upper floor's, faces that disappear instantly when approached. These windows, cracked and dusty, should reflect nothing but darkness. Yet, witnesses argue that something or someone stares back at them. Paranormal enthusiasts speculate that these spirits may be former station workers, conductors, or travelers who once frequented the upstairs offices and waiting areas. Their reflections appear with such clarity that even skeptics leave the station questioning what they saw. Some of the most chilling encounters come from those who explore the building alone. One visitor recounted entering the main hall and noticing faint whispers drifting through the air. At first, they sounded like soft conversations, as though dozens of people were waiting for a train that never arrived. But when the visitor listened more carefully, the whispers seemed to blend together, forming a low hum that moved from one corner of the hall to the other. Despite the overwhelming feeling of being surrounded, the hall remained visibly empty. Another individual, a photographer documenting abandoned spaces, described feeling a hand brush against his shoulder as he stepped onto the main platform. Thinking it was his partner, he turned around, but no one stood behind him. At the same moment, he heard the unmistakable sound of a conductor calling out departure times. It echoed across the platform, announcing destinations that hadn't existed for decades. When he reviewed his photos later, he found a blurred figure standing at the far end of the platform, something he swore was in there when he took the shot. Stories like these continue to circulate among urban explorers, ghost hunters, and locals who grew up hearing tales of Inglewood Station's haunted nature. While some dismiss the experiences as tricks of the mind in a dark, abandoned place, others insist the encounters are too consistent to ignore. They believe the station holds memories of countless travelers who passed through its halls, moments of excitement, sorrow, anticipation, and farewell. Those emotions, they say, may have imprinted themselves onto the building, creating echoes of the past that linger long after death. Inglewood Station remains closed, deteriorating slowly but never completely forgotten. For the living, it is a relic of another time. For the dead, it seems to be a place they still inhabit, a final terminal, where the past continues to move silently along empty tracks. Those who visit today step not only into an abandoned station, but into a world where shadows walk, footsteps follow, and the spirits of forgotten passengers linger, forever waiting for trains that will never arrive. Oak Park Station sits quietly at the edge of the neighborhood, surrounded by historic homes, tree-lined streets, and the soft hum of suburban life. During the day, it looks like any other small commuter stop, modest, peaceful, a place where trains come and go without much notice. But when night falls, the atmosphere shifts. Shadows stretch across the platforms, the wind whistles through metal beams, and the station's long history begins to show itself in unsettling ways. It is after dark that Oak Park Station reveals why so many locals refuse to walk near it once the last train has left for the night. For generations, there have been whispers of a woman who appears on the platform after midnight. And a wide-brimmed hat that casts a thin veil of shadow across her pale face. She stands perfectly still at the edge of the platform, hands folded, as if waiting patiently for a train that will never arrive. Instead, she stares down the tracks with an unbroken, eerie focus. Her presence is completely silent. Explorers who have tried to approach her describe an immediate and overwhelming cold, as if stepping into a winter storm. Many stop before they get too close, sensing that something is terribly wrong. Those who push forward say the woman simply fades away, dissolving into the darkness like mist. Yet the ghostly woman is not the only strange occurrence at Oak Park Station. On quiet nights, long after the last train is scheduled, residents nearby report hearing the unmistakable sound of a distant whistle. It's soft, mournful, and strangely melodic, echoing through the air with the tone of trains from another era. But when they look toward the tracks, nothing is there. No headlight cuts through the darkness. No vibrations shake the ground. The whistle comes without a source, rising and fading as if a phantom locomotive were passing through a world only it can access. They feel the air shift, growing colder as if pushed aside by a fast-moving mass. But the tracks remain empty, the darkness unbroken. A few claim that they have seen a faint shape, a ghostly outline of a train sliding silently through the station, its windows dark and its cars impossibly translucent. Many believe these strange events are connected to a tragedy said to have occurred at the station decades ago. According to local lore, a woman dressed in elegant vintage clothing had been waiting for her husband, a soldier returning from war. She received news that his train had been delayed, but she insisted on waiting through the cold night, determined to greet him the moment he arrived. Hours passed, then days. Eventually, the devastating truth emerged. Her husband had died abroad. Heartbroken and alone, she continued returning to the station every night, unable to accept the loss. When she finally passed away, some say her spirit simply continued the routine she could never bring herself to abandon. Whether this story is true or just a tale handed down over time, sightings of the pale woman persist. Some witnesses say that when she appears, the air becomes heavy, as though the past is pressing against the present. Others report hearing faint whispers near the platform, soft, trembling words they cannot understand, drifting through the stillness. A few have even described catching the scent of old-fashioned perfume, sweet and floral, lingering in the air long after the figure vanishes. Urban explorers who venture inside the small station building at night often report feeling a presence close behind them. Some hear what sounds like delicate footsteps crossing the floor. Others feel a brush of cold air against their necks or see movement reflected in the dusty glass panes. The shadows inside seem to shift and stretch, as though someone or something is pacing through the rooms. These explorers often leave quickly, claiming they felt as though they were intruding on a space still occupied by someone unseen. The vintage woman is not always the only apparition. These apparitions are faint, appearing only for a moment, before disappearing like smoke. Some believe these spirits may be lingering travelers from the station's early days, people bound to a place connected deeply to their final memories. The station's worn bricks and aging tracks hold countless stories, many of which may never have been told. Locals have learned to trust their instincts. Dog walkers avoid the station after dusk. Commuters never linger once the sun sets. Even passing drivers sometimes report seeing the pale woman standing alone under the station lights, visible for only a heartbeat before vanishing. Today, Oak Park Station remains fully functional during the day, welcoming passengers and maintaining its quiet role in the community. But at night, it becomes something entirely different. A place where time seems to fold, where memories breathe, and where shadows carry echoes of lives long gone. The woman in vintage clothing continues to wait, unchanged by the passage of years, and the phantom whistle continues to drift across the tracks, reminding anyone who hears it that some journeys never truly end. Those who pass by after dark know better than to look for too long. At Oak Park Station, the past doesn't simply linger, it watches, waits, and murmurs softly through the night, carried by ghostly trains that travel a route no living passenger will ever board. Rockford Station stands as a solemn relic on the edge of the city, its once bustling platforms now wrapped in silence. The building, constructed during the golden age of American rail travel, still carries the weight of its long history. Red brick walls, fading signage, and rusted metal beams give the station a ghostly presence, even in daylight. But when night settles across Rockford, the atmosphere deepens into something far more unsettling, something that has fueled decades of whispered stories and chilling encounters. Visitors who wander near the station after dark often describe the same sensation. The feeling of being watched from just beyond the light. The abandoned tracks stretch into the shadows, warped and overgrown, yet they seem to hold memories of movement. Footsteps echo along the old pathways even when no one is there, as though the station is still trying to mimic the rhythm of travelers long gone. Some say these sounds belong to the spirits of railroad workers who spent their lives maintaining the lines, guiding trains, and ensuring safe passage through the region. Others believe the echoes come from former passengers who once passed through the station and never truly left. One of the most common reports involves faint figures glimpsed near the platform edges. These ghostly shapes appear blurred, almost transparent, like people half remembered from an old photograph. Witnesses say the figures move with purpose, as if still following routines from decades past. A man in a long overcoat might stride toward the old ticket counter. A woman carrying a suitcase may appear to wait near the bench where an inbound train once arrived. These apparitions never speak, never acknowledge the living, and never stay long enough to reveal full details. They drift through the station with a sense of quiet urgency, then fade into the darkness. A more unsettling phenomenon involves the sound of swinging gates. Long ago, before automatic doors took over, station gates were manually latched and opened by workers as trains arrived. Today, the old gates remain locked and unused. Yet countless visitors claim they have heard the slow, rhythmic creak of those heavy gates swinging back and forth, as if pushed by invisible hands. The sound often echoes through the empty building late at night. Sometimes it's faint, like the memory of a noise. Other times it seems so close and distinct that visitors swear the gates must be moving. But when they look, the gate stands perfectly still, untouched, and frozen in time. The station's interior tells its own unsettling story. Explorers who venture inside, usually against local advice, say the atmosphere shifts dramatically upon crossing the threshold. The air becomes colder, denser, heavy with the feeling of countless unseen presences. The main hall, once filled with voices and the constant shuffle of travelers, now holds only shadows. Yet those shadows move in ways they shouldn't. Some visitors have seen silhouettes pacing along the walls, crossing the hall as though heading toward a departing train. Others report the sensation of someone brushing past them, accompanied by a whisper of cold air. One particularly persistent legend involves a spectral station master who continues his duties long after death. He is described as a tall man wearing a uniform from the early 20th century, complete with cap and polished shoes. Witnesses say he appears near the information board, checking a pocket watch that glints faintly in the dim light. Some claim he tries to speak, but his voice is no louder than a breath lost in the wind. When approached, he simply vanishes, leaving behind only a lingering cold that clings to the skin. Locals believe he may have been a dedicated worker who refused to abandon his post, forever bound to the station he served. There are also stories of tragic accidents that took place on the tracks surrounding the station. Rockford's early rail days were dangerous, and many workers were injured or killed while maintaining the lines. Some of the ghostly figures seen along the tracks are believed to be those lost souls, still performing their duties. Late-night joggers and nearby residents report seeing the silhouettes of men carrying lanterns, walking deliberately along the rails. The lantern light is faint and flickering, often appearing for only a second before disappearing completely. Some believe these phantom workers are searching for something or someone they lost. Another chilling account involves the sound of distant trains. Though Rockford Station no longer receives regular service, many residents say they have heard the rumble of a train approaching long after the tracks were abandoned. The noise begins softly, building in intensity until it resembles the approach of a massive locomotive, but no train ever arrives. Instead, the sound fades out gradually, leaving only an eerie silence. Some imagine this is the echo of a train that once crashed near the station, replaying its final moments in a loop that cannot be broken. Inside the station, strange temperature drops have been recorded, particularly near the old waiting room. Visitors describe a cold so intense it feels like stepping into a freezer. This chilling spot is often accompanied by the unmistakable scent of old cigarette smoke. even though the station has been smoke-free for decades. Some believe this area was once a gathering place for travelers during long delays, and that their lingering energy still clings to the benches and walls. People who stand in the cold zone for too long sometimes report hearing faint, murmurs, soft voices, speaking words too quiet to understand. Despite its eerie reputation, Rockford Station continues to attract curious visitors and paranormal investigators. Many hope to capture photographic evidence of the ghostly figures or record the creaking gates. Some leave with stories of strange encounters, while others swear they felt nothing at all. Yet almost everyone who visits agrees on one thing. The station feels alive in a way that defies explanation. Its quiet halls seem to breathe, its shadows seem to watch, and its abandoned tracks seem to echo with footsteps that belong to another time. Rockford Station stands as a reminder that some places hold memories more deeply than others. The ghosts here are not violent or malicious. They are echoes of a past that refuses to fade. Workers, travelers, and forgotten souls continue to move through the station in ways the living can only glimpse. The creak of swinging gates, the whisper of footsteps along abandoned tracks, and the blurred shapes drifting between shadows all point to a place where history lingers more powerfully than anyone truly understands. Alton Station stands near the riverfront, its old brick structure rising quietly above the tracks that once carried countless passengers across Illinois. Though its days of busy travel have long since passed, the station remains a familiar landmark, one that locals approach with a mix of respect and caution. As dusk settles over Alton and the Mississippi darkens to a reflective black, the station begins to come alive in ways its builders never intended. It is during twilight, when day and night briefly share the sky, that the spirits of Alton Station reveal themselves. Visitors who linger near the platform at dusk often describe the same haunting scene, faint figures appearing one by one, as if materializing from the dimming light. These ghostly passengers stand silently, their forms hazy and shimmering like reflections on the river's surface. Some seem to be dressed in clothing from the early days of rail travel, long coats, hats, and worn traveling satchels, while others appear more modern, their outlines sharper, but still unmistakably spectral. They do not interact with one another, nor do they acknowledge the living. Instead, they stand in patient rows, waiting for a train that may never fully arrive. Witnesses say these phantom passengers always face the tracks. When a breeze sweeps through, their silhouettes flicker as if caught between this world and the next. Some report the faint sound of murmuring among them, soft whispers that drift across the platform, like distant conversations carried by the wind. Others describe hearing the rustle of clothing or the tapping of a shoe on concrete even. Though no footsteps ever reach their ears, the apparitions never stay for long. As the last light fades and true night settles, the figures blur and dissolve, leaving behind only a profound stillness. The station itself contributes to the eerie atmosphere. Lights that should remain steady begin to flicker unpredictably, casting long shadows across the empty platform. Some bulbs dim so low that they barely glow, only to flare back to full brightness a moment later. Visitors who stand beneath these lights often describe feeling watched from above or behind, though no movement can be seen. The station's electrical system has been inspected numerous times, yet no explanation has ever been found for the strange fluctuations that occur only at dusk. One of the most unsettling phenomena reported at Alton Station involves silent trains. Late in the evening, usually just after the phantom passengers vanish, some witnesses claim to hear a low rumble approaching from down the line. The rails tremble slightly, the air grows heavier, and the reflective glare of headlamps appears in the distance. But when the train arrives, or seems to, everything changes. Instead of the roar of an engine or the metallic screech of braking wheels, there is total silence. A dark, ghostly train glides into view, its cars shadowy and translucent, its windows black. According to local accounts, A heavily loaded passenger train lost control on wet tracks and plunged partially into the riverbank. Many passengers survived, but several did not. It is said those who perished never reached their destination. Their spirits returned to Alton Station, waiting endlessly for a train that will take them home. Whether this legend is true or simply a story passed down through generations, the presence of the silent, ghostly train only fuels the belief that something unresolved lingers here. Visitors who explore the station building itself report additional strange experiences. The air inside feels unnaturally cold, especially near the old ticket counter. Some people hear the faint clatter of typewriter keys or the soft tearing of ticket stubs, despite the equipment having been removed long ago. Others report hearing footsteps echoing down the corridors, slow and deliberate, as though someone were walking toward a train departure that no longer exists. When explorers follow the noise, they find empty halls and dust-covered floors. Still, the footsteps return the moment they turn away. The waiting room is another hotspot for paranormal activity. Flickering lights cast shifting patterns across the walls, creating the illusion of movement. Some witnesses swear they have seen shadowy figures seated on the old benches, their heads bowed as if lost in thought. A few describe the sensation of being surrounded by unseen travelers, an overwhelming impression of bodies brushing past, the whisper of coats sliding across one another, and a faint warmth that feels human despite the room's cold temperature. These encounters leave visitors shaken, as though they've stepped momentarily into another time. Outside, the wind carries strange sounds along the platform. Sometimes it brings what seems like distant laughter. Other times it carries soft, indistinct whispers. People who hear the whispers insist they are not random noises. They sound intentional, almost conversational. Some claim they can make out fragments of words, names, farewells, directions, but never enough to form complete sentences. The wind at Alton Station is unlike any other. It moves with a purpose, swirling through the old beams and rusted railings, as if trying to communicate something lost long ago. Despite its eerie reputation, the station does not evoke a sense of danger. Instead, it feels heavy with memory. They linger not out of malice, but because their final journey was never completed. Anyone who visits Alton Station at twilight feels the weight of history pressing close. The river glints with fading daylight, the shadows deepen across the tracks, and the past begins to stir in whispers and flickers of movement. Ghostly passengers gather, unseen by most, but undeniable to those who look closely. And as they stand waiting for their silent train, the wind carries their whispers down the line, a reminder that some spirits remain tied to the path they once traveled, forever searching for the journey that was lost. East St. Louis Station stands alone on the edge of the riverfront, a monument to a past era when trains carried thousands of people across the Midwest every day. The station once thrummed with life conductors calling out departure times, passengers hurrying to catch connections, and steam engines roaring to a halt. Today, however, the building rests in silence. Its vast platforms sit empty, its carriages stand abandoned, and its echoing halls belong to dust and shadows. But those who visit after dusk insist the station is far from empty. Something still moves along the tracks, slipping between the living and the dead. The most widely reported phenomenon involves shadowy figures seen sitting inside old, unused carriages. These carriages remain locked and derelict, their interiors dusty and forgotten. Yet, witnesses claim that if you approach quietly and peer through the fogged windows, you may see silhouettes seated inside, men and women who appear to be waiting patiently for a train. Some sit with their heads bowed, as if studying a ticket. Others face forward with straight backs, hands folded neatly in their laps. The details are impossible to make out clearly, but their shapes are unmistakable. The figures remain completely still until the moment someone blinks or looks away. When the observer turns back, the seats are empty again. Urban explorers recall hearing the creak of old springs or the faint rustle of clothing from within these carriages. A few have even claimed to see the outlines of hands resting against the windows, leaving no prints behind. The figures never speak, never move, and never acknowledge the living. They simply exist, half-formed echoes of passengers who once boarded trains at this very station and never completed their journeys. Yet the carriages are only one part of the station's unsettling reputation. Visitors often describe hearing phantom footsteps along the deserted tracks. These footsteps echo with a slow, steady rhythm, as though somebody or something is pacing back and forth on the gravel. The sound often starts far down the track, gradually growing louder, closer. But when visitors shine a light across the rails, no one is ever there. The footsteps continue for several seconds, then fade abruptly, swallowed by silence. Some believe these phantom footsteps belong to workers who died on the job, men who maintained the tracks through blistering summers and icy winters. Others think the sounds come from former passengers who missed their final train and remain trapped in a loop of endless waiting. The footsteps seem to follow visitors occasionally, matching their pace for several moments before stopping entirely. This sensation, knowing something unseen is walking just behind, leaves many people refusing to stay after dark. Another chilling detail involves the air itself. Even on warm summer nights, a sudden drop in temperature is commonly reported near the old platforms. Visitors describe stepping into invisible pockets of cold, as if the station is breathing out icy memories. These cold spots move unpredictably, drifting from platform to platform or settling along the track where a train once derailed many years ago. Some witnesses say the temperature drops so sharply that their breath becomes visible in the air, even though the surrounding night remains mild. Those who linger in these cold zones often report feeling strangely disoriented, as if they are briefly standing in two different times. Some describe the fleeting impression of having just missed a train, the faint vibration in the ground, the distant murmur of voices, or the quiet hiss of steam dissipating. For a moment, the station feels alive again, only to fall silent a second later, leaving the visitor grasping at a memory that isn't theirs. Inside the station, the atmosphere grows heavier. The main hall, once filled with bustling crowds and echoing announcements, now feels like a cavern of forgotten stories. People who enter the hall at night often report hearing faint murmurs floating through the air. These voices are never loud enough to decipher, but they sound eerily conversational, like a crowd waiting, whispering, expecting a train that never arrives. Occasionally, a louder sound breaks through, the phantom slam of a door, the soft ringing of a bell, or the unmistakable clatter of something metallic falling. Yet no object ever lies on the floor. There are also accounts of lights flickering inside abandoned rooms. The station no longer has power, but faint glows sometimes appear in the upstairs windows, soft, bluish lights that pulse gently, like lanterns carried by unseen hands. Some say these lights belong to the spirits of station workers still making rounds. Others believe they mark the presence of travelers searching for the platform they never reached in life. One particularly haunting story involves a lone conductor seen walking along the western platform. Witnesses describe him as tall and thin, wearing an old-fashioned cap and carrying a lantern that emits an otherworldly glow. He walks steadily, scanning the tracks as though expecting a train. When approached, he flickers like a candle flame, then vanishes without a trace. Those who have encountered him all report the same lingering sensation, the feeling of obligation, as if he was about to give instructions or announce a departure. Some even claim they heard him mutter inaudible words, the last echoes of a job he continues long after death. Outside the station, the surrounding area adds to the eerie atmosphere. The river breeze carries strange sounds, whispers, the soft clang of metal, the distant rumble of a train that never appears. Locals avoid the area at night, warning that the station becomes a crossroads for the restless. They insist the spirits here are not dangerous, but they are persistent. They walk the platforms, sit in the carriages, and echo through the halls, endlessly replaying moments from a time when the station was alive. East St. Louis Station has become a gathering place for memories that cannot fade. The shadowy figures in the carriages, The phantom footsteps along deserted tracks, and the waves of icy air drifting through the platforms all speak to a place where the past holds on tightly. For those willing to visit, the station offers a glimpse into a world suspended between movement and stillness, a ghostly reminder that some journeys never find their end. Springfield, Illinois Terminal sits at the heart of the city, a relic of a bygone era when the hum of locomotives and the bustle of travelers marked the rhythm of daily life. Today, the terminal is largely abandoned, its platforms crumbling, signage faded, and tracks overgrown with weeds. Yet, despite its quiet exterior, visitors have reported experiences that suggest the terminal is far from empty. As the sun dips below the horizon, the station seems to come alive, not with the sounds of modern trains or commuters, but with echoes from its storied past. Those who linger near the abandoned platforms often speak first of sound, the faint roll of luggage wheels along cracked concrete, soft footsteps that follow down deserted corridors, and muted conversations that drift like whispers on the wind. These noises are subtle at first, easy to dismiss as distant city sounds or the creaking of an aging structure. But they persist, repeating with an uncanny rhythm, as if the terminal is replaying fragments of its former life. Travelers report that the sounds grow clearer when the evening chill settles in, carrying with it an unshakable sense of presence. Ghostly commuters are a common sight. Witnesses ascribe figures emerging from the shadows, men and women dressed in early 20th century attire, carrying briefcases, handbags, or travel satchels. These chilling pockets of air are often accompanied by sudden gusts or inexplicable breezes. Despite the surrounding air remaining still, some visitors report that standing in these cold zones makes them feel as though they are not alone, that invisible presences brush past or circle around them, unseen but undeniably real. The sounds of rolling luggage are particularly haunting. Many describe hearing the soft clatter of wheels on worn wooden floors, followed by the faint shuffling of footsteps. The noises seem to move in patterns, echoing through the terminal, as though multiple travelers are passing by simultaneously. Yet when they search the platforms or corridors, no one is there. Paranormal enthusiasts speculate that these sounds are the echoes of travelers who once depended on Springfield, Illinois Terminal for their daily commutes or long-distance journeys, replaying fragments of their routines endlessly. The muted conversations add another layer of strangeness. Visitors hear faint, indistinct words that rise and fall across empty halls. The conversations are soft, like the low hum of background chatter, sometimes punctuated by laughter or a sigh. They are never loud enough to discern completely, leaving listeners with the unsettling impression that people are speaking just beyond their reach. Some have attempted to follow the voices, hoping to discover other living witnesses, only to find empty halls and darkened waiting rooms. Some witnesses report seeing a family group walking together, their forms blurred but clearly connected. Children sometimes speak of people waiting in the dark, and storytellers have passed down accounts of flickering lights, shadows, and distant conversations. The ghostly commuters, vanishing into walls or empty carriages, continue to replay their routines, reminding anyone who enters that some places hold history not just in records and photographs, but in lingering echoes of life itself. For those who wander its platforms after sunset, Springfield, Illinois, Terminal offers a glimpse into a world where the living and the dead briefly share space. A terminal where shadows of the past continue to move, speak, and wait, forever repeating the final moments of journeys that never truly ended. Those who have encountered him note an unsettling stillness that surrounds him, a quiet intensity that suggests he belongs to the station more than to the world of the living. Visitors report that the shadowy man rarely interacts with them, yet his presence is unmistakable. Some claim that when they look directly at him, he turns and walks away, vanishing into the darkness before they can approach. Others have watched him pause, mid-stride, seemingly waiting for something or someone before resuming his silent patrol. In many cases, people feel an unexplained chill in the air when he appears, a sudden drop in temperature that travels along the platform and settles like a physical weight. The depot is also haunted by phantom trains. Long after the final scheduled service has ended, witnesses hear the unmistakable whistle of a locomotive echoing across the tracks. The sound is deep and mournful, carrying the tone of trains that roared through Aurora decades ago. Following the whistle, the faint vibration of wheels on metal can be felt, and the distant glow of headlamps appears through the darkness. Yet when observers approach the tracks, the rails are empty, the air still, and the night utterly silent. Sometimes, the ghostly trains appear in full form. Witnesses describe cars emerging from the shadows, their outlines faint and semi-transparent, gliding along the rails without sound or weight. Windows reflect faint images of figures not present, and doors sometimes creak open or shut on their own, producing sounds reminiscent of a long-abandoned building that is somehow still alive. The combination of shifting lights, shadowy figures, and phantom trains makes the Aurora Train Depot a place where reality and memory seem to blend seamlessly. Many believe the hauntings are tied to the depot's history. Aurora Train Depot was once a hub of activity, witnessing countless arrivals and departures, reunions, and farewells. Over the decades, accidents occurred, workers injured on the tracks, passengers who never reached their destinations, locomotives derailed or delayed. It is said that those who perished in these events remain bound to the station, endlessly performing the tasks and routines of their former lives. The shadowy conductor, the ghostly trains, and the invisible passengers are thought to be manifestations of these unresolved echoes, trapped in a loop of their final moments. Visitors who have experienced the depot at night often describe a profound sense of connection to the past. The shadowy conductor is precise in his movements. The phantom trains follow exacting schedules, and the invisible passengers carry an aura of familiarity and routine. It is as though the station itself has not relinquished the memories of daily life that once defined it. Despite the chill, the flickering lights, and the spectral figures, many feel a strange calm, a sense that they are witnessing a world preserved in time, rather than a place of malice. The wind adds its own voice to the depot's haunted chorus. It sweeps along the tracks, carrying faint whistles and soft echoes of movement. At times, it seems to respond to the presence of the shadowy man or the phantom trains, bending around corners and rushing through open doorways, as if carrying messages from one spectral figure to another. Witnesses often describe standing on the platform, hearing the trains whistle and feeling the wind swirl, sensing that something invisible is passing through alongside them. Aurora Train Depot today functions as a quiet, historic site, visited by locals and urban explorers alike. During daylight hours, it is easy to forget the stories and legends that cling to its walls. But after sunset, the depot transforms into a stage for ghostly reenactments of lives once lived in motion, a place where shadowy figures, phantom trains, and invisible passengers continue their routines without end. Those who linger after dark come away with a mixture of awe and unease, aware that they have witnessed only fragments of a world still unfolding in the shadows. At night, Aurora Train Depot is more than brick and steel. It is a living memory of the city's railway past, inhabited by those who cannot or will not let go. The shadowy conductor walks the platform. The phantom trains arrive and depart on empty tracks, and invisible passengers step on and off as if the station was still in full operation. For anyone who experiences it, the depot is a haunting reminder that some journeys never truly end, and some travelers are destined to remain forever in motion. Quincy Union Station, perched near the Mississippi River, is a structure steeped in history and lingering memories. Its grand brick, facade, and towering windows recall a time when rail travel connected towns and families across long distances. Today, the station sees little activity. Trains have long since retired, platforms are cracked and weathered, and the waiting rooms echo only with the wind. Yet for those who visit after dusk, Quincy Union Station reveals itself as more than an empty building, is a place where the past refuses to stay buried. The station hums with echoes of lives once lived and journeys once undertaken, giving rise to accounts that have fascinated and unsettled witnesses for decades. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the appearance of spectral families. Visitors often describe seeing groups of figures gathered on the platforms, their shapes semi-transparent, like images projected from another era. Mothers hold the hands of children, fathers adjust coats or glance at watches, and luggage sits neatly beside them. They are dressed in clothing from the early to mid-20th century, coats, hats, and well-worn shoes, typical of travelers during the station's busiest years. These families appear poised for departure, standing in silent anticipation for trains that will never come. Their presence is eerie, yet strangely calm, as though they are trapped in the final moments before a journey they were never able to complete. Witnesses report that these figures are remarkably still, yet seem aware of their surroundings. When approached too closely, the spectral families vanish without warning, as though the act of observation causes them to retreat from the living world. Others have noted that the figures sometimes seem to drift just beyond the edge of sight, lingering at the corners of vision before fading entirely. Children have claimed to see little hands waving gently or heads turning toward them, only to disappear when anyone attempts to engage. The effect is haunting, a fleeting glimpse of life that never fully leaves the station. Accompanying the ghostly families are inexplicable cold drafts that sweep across the platforms and waiting areas. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature, often focused around the locations where figures have been spotted. These drafts are not accompanied by wind from outside, nor can they be explained by structural flaws in the building. They are sudden and penetrating, settling into bones and clothing, making the air feel alive with presence. Those standing in these cold pockets sometimes report hearing whispers carried faintly on the breeze, fragmented words, half-uttered names, or soft murmurs of conversation. The whispers are fleeting, disappearing if one tries to focus too closely on their source. The station's shadow figures are another unsettling feature. Unlike the more recognizable spectral families, these forms are darker, harder to define. Witnesses describe them as human-shaped shadows that move across platforms or down hallways, never fully materializing. They do not interact with the living, yet their presence is felt. Some say the shadows linger near benches or staircases, disappearing the moment they are noticed. Others have seen them glide past windows or walls, only to vanish, leaving behind the faintest impression of movement and a lingering sense of being watched. Sounds also play a crucial role in the station's haunted reputation. Many visitors report the faint creak of metal, reminiscent of train doors or rolling luggage. Others hear footsteps pacing along corridors that should be empty, matching the rhythm of commuters from decades past. These noises often coincide with sightings of spectral families or shadowy figures, reinforcing the impression that the station is a repository for echoes of daily life frozen in time. Murmured conversations drift through the halls, sometimes accompanied by the soft tapping of shoes or the rustling of coats. Though indistinct, the cumulative effect is one of movement and life, preserved long after the station fell silent. Some witnesses have attempted to photograph or record these phenomena, hoping to capture tangible evidence. Photographs often reveal blurred shapes, faint silhouettes, or inexplicable distortions, while audio recordings sometimes pick up soft whispers or metallic sounds that cannot be attributed to any source. Yet the station remains largely resistant to definitive documentation. The apparitions vanish when confronted directly, the whispers fade when attention is drawn to them, and the shadows retreat into corners of perception. It is as though Quincy Union Station exists in a delicate balance between the living and the spectral, offering glimpses of its past while keeping much concealed. Historical events likely anchor these phenomena. Quincy Union Station served as a hub for countless travelers, witnessing joyful reunions, tearful farewells, and long journeys that spanned the Midwest. Many of the spectral figures may represent individuals who experienced sudden tragedies, missed connections, or lives cut short before reaching their destinations. The station's architecture, materials, and energy seem to hold these memories, allowing echoes of human presence to persist long after the living have gone. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that these echoes are most visible at dusk and into the early hours of night, when the world's attention has shifted elsewhere and the station exists primarily for those who remember it in spirit. Despite its eerie atmosphere, Quincy Union Station does not strike fear in the same way that dark forests or derelict hospitals might. Instead, it evokes a sense of melancholy and reflection. Visitors often describe a bittersweet feeling when witnessing the spectral families, an awareness of lives once lived, journeys undertaken, and moments frozen in time. It is a reminder that the past lingers, not only in photographs and records, but also in the very spaces where it unfolded. Locals speak of avoiding the station late at night, yet others are drawn by curiosity or the hope of witnessing the apparitions firsthand. Those who linger feel the cold drafts, hear the whispers, and glimpse the shadows. Gaining a fleeting understanding of the lives that once moved through the station, they leave with a sense of having been part of something larger, a temporary witness to the lingering heartbeat of a place that continues to hold the past within its walls. Quincy Union Station remains a silent monument to the people and stories of its era. Its abandoned platforms echo with rolling luggage and muted conversations. Ghostly commuters appear and vanish into walls or empty carriages, and shadows move with a purpose known only to them. The station is a crossroads between memory and reality, where the past asserts itself gently but unmistakably. For anyone who ventures there at night, it is clear that Quincy Union Station is far more than a relic. It is a home for the echoes of lives that continue to wait forever, tied to the platforms where their journeys began. Champaign-Urbana Station, a once bustling hub of Midwestern rail travel, now sits quietly between the Twin Cities, its brick facade worn by decades of wind, rain, and sun. Its platforms are weathered, windows dusty, and waiting rooms echo with emptiness. Yet, visitors who linger after dark report that the station is far from deserted. The steps follow a deliberate rhythm, as if travelers of old are still moving purposefully toward their destinations. Sometimes the sounds approach from behind, prompting modern visitors to look over their shoulders, only to find the hallways empty. Other times, footsteps move along adjacent corridors, fading in and out as though the building itself is replaying fragments of a day-long past. Visitors report seeing figures sitting quietly in empty seats along the platforms or in the waiting room. The shapes are often indistinct, appearing as dark silhouettes against the flickering glow of overhead lights. Occasionally, witnesses can discern details: the outline of a hat, the curve of a coat, a satchel resting beside a chair. These spectral travelers appear absorbed in their own world, staring blankly at tracks where no trains arrive or checking watches that have long since stopped ticking. When approached, the shadowy figures often vanish. A passenger may attempt to engage or simply walk toward one of the apparitions, only to find the seat suddenly empty, with no trace that anyone was ever there. Despite this, the sense of presence remains, leaving a lingering chill or the impression that the observer is being watched by someone or something that is just out of reach. In some cases, multiple figures are seen simultaneously, as if the station is hosting a gathering of commuters from different decades, each trapped in their routine yet unaware of one another's presence. The waiting rooms and corridors themselves seem to amplify these haunting. Faint whispers, unintelligible but undeniably human, drift across the platforms and echo through hallways. Light fixtures flicker intermittently, casting shadows that twist unnaturally and sometimes seem to move independently of any observer. The station's abandoned tracks add another layer to its spectral reputation. The experience is both unsettling and strangely melancholic, a reminder of the lives that intersected here and the passage of time that cannot be reversed. Paranormal investigators have visited Champaign-Urbana Station to capture evidence using cameras, audio recorders, and temperature sensors. Photographs sometimes reveal blurred figures seated on empty benches, while audio devices pick up low murmurs or the faint creak of doors opening. Temperature drops correspond to the locations of phantom figures, reinforcing the connection between the cold spots and spectral presence. Yet, despite attempts to document the phenomena, the station retains an air of mystery, with events often defying explanation or eluding capture. Witnesses often describe leaving the station with a sense of reflection. The shadowy travelers are not malevolent. They seem caught in a routine they cannot break, silently reenacting moments of life that have passed. Their presence evokes empathy rather than fear, a poignant reminder of the transience of human experience and the memories that linger in the spaces we leave behind. Champaign-Urbana Station today stands as a quiet monument to the past. Its abandoned corridors echo with phantom footsteps. Empty seats are occasionally occupied by shadowy travelers, and whispers drift softly through waiting rooms. The building exists as both a physical structure and a vessel of memory, bridging the present and a past that refuses to fade. Visitors who pass through its halls after dark witness a world in motion long after its living inhabitants have gone, a station where time itself seems to pause, and echoes of human life continue to walk, sit, and wait. In this haunting, the station reminds all who linger that history is never truly gone. Phantom footsteps trace the worn floors, shadowy figures occupy empty seats, and whispers of past conversations slip along the corridors. Champaign-Urbana Station is a place where the past walks quietly beside the present, and where travelers from another time continue their endless journey, forever moving through the night. Peoria Depot, once a bustling hub of Midwestern rail travel, now stands as a quiet monument to both the triumphs and tragedies of the railroad era. Its tall brick walls and vaulted ceilings recall a time when passengers hurried to catch morning trains. Conductors called out destinations, and the rhythm of life followed the steady beat of arriving and departing locomotives. Today, the depot is mostly silent, yet visitors who wander its platforms after dark report that it is far from empty. Witnesses describe ghostly figures of victims appearing at night, standing or moving silently where chaos once reigned. One of the most common experiences reported involves shadowy figures along the platforms. Visitors often see human forms in faint outlines, blurred at the edges as if they are partially fading into the night. Some appear to be passengers, frozen mid-stride with coats flapping in an invisible wind or satchels clutched to chests. Others resemble railway workers or conductors, standing rigidly near the edges of platforms, their postures formal and alert. These figures do not interact with the living, yet their presence is profoundly felt. Many witnesses describe a sense of being observed, of unseen eyes tracking their movement, even when no one is physically present. Phantom whistles are another chilling feature of Peoria Depot. In the stillness of night, the deep, mournful sound of a train whistle echoes through the station, rolling down the tracks and across the platforms. It carries the tone of locomotives from a time long past, resonating with the collective memory of travelers and workers. Some witnesses report hearing multiple whistles, overlapping as if several trains were approaching simultaneously, though no actual trains can be seen. The sound is often accompanied by the faint vibration of movement, a trembling in the rails or the platform beneath the feet of those who hear it. Lights at the depot add to its eerie atmosphere. Visitors frequently report flickering overhead lamps and platform lights that dim and brighten without cause. Some lights pulse rhythmically, as though syncing to an invisible train's arrival or the movement of ghostly passengers. Shadows stretch unnaturally across brick walls, forming shapes that vanish when approached. Occasionally, a lone figure is illuminated by a flickering light, standing perfectly still, only to dissolve into darkness when one attempts to get closer. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, creates a sensation that the station is alive, with a presence unseen but undeniably felt. The tragic history of Peoria Depot seems intertwined with the spectral activity. Many of the ghostly figures witnessed by visitors are thought to be the victims of past accidents, passengers who never completed their journey, railway workers caught in the chaos of derailments, or commuters lost in collisions. These spirits are not violent, yet their presence is poignant, evoking sorrow and a profound sense of loss. Witnesses often report an overwhelming emotional weight in the areas where apparitions appear, as though the pain and fear of long past accidents are temporarily felt by the living. Several people have recounted experiences that combine multiple phenomena. A visitor walking along an empty platform might hear the low hum of approaching wheels, followed by a mournful whistle. A shadowy figure may appear at the far end of the platform, partially illuminated by a flickering light, only to vanish the instant it is observed. The air often grows inexplicably cold during these encounters, sending chills through those present and heightening the sensation that the station is not just empty space, but a corridor through which past and present intersect. Attempts to document these experiences have yielded intriguing but inconclusive results. Cameras sometimes capture faint outlines in empty corridors, blurred figures on platforms, or the flicker of light without discernible cause. Audio recordings occasionally pick up low whistles, metallic groans, or faint voices speaking in hushed tones. Yet the phenomena often resist explanation, appearing only to those present in the moment and vanishing as soon as efforts are made to record them. Paranormal researchers suggest that the combination of tragic history, residual energy, and the station's architecture may contribute to the continued manifestation of spectral activity. Even for casual visitors, the sense of presence at Peoria Depot is palpable. A solitary walk along the tracks after sunset often produces feelings of unease, mingled with fascination. Phantom footsteps echo through hallways, shadows glide past waiting areas, and the faint whistle of a non-existent train resonates in the distance. The station feels alive in a way that is both sorrowful and compelling, as though the events of decades past continue to imprint themselves on anyone willing to pause and listen. Peoria Depot remains a space where time seems to fold in on itself. The platforms, corridors, and waiting rooms are more than abandoned structures. They are vessels for memory. Ghostly figures of travelers and workers replay motions frozen in the past. Phantom whistles signal departures that never happen, and lights flicker as if to mark moments long since ended. For those who witness it, the station is a haunting reminder that tragedy leaves a mark, not only in history books, but in the very spaces where it occurred. Visitors leave Peoria Depot with a sense of having glimpsed something beyond ordinary perception. The ghostly figures, the chilling drafts, the mournful whistles, and the flickering lights all combine to create an experience that is at once eerie and poignant. Here, at this depot along the Illinois riverfront, the past lingers in the present, and the spirits of those lost in tragic accidents continue to walk, wait, and echo their stories across platforms long since emptied of living passengers. The station is a place where memory and reality intertwine, ensuring that Peoria Depot remains haunted by the lives it once carried and the tragedies it cannot forget. Carbondale Station, nestled in the southern reaches of Illinois, stands as a quiet relic of a time when rail travel shaped the rhythm of life in the region. Once a hub of activity, the station's brick walls, high ceilings, and long platforms bore witness to the comings and goings of countless passengers, families traveling for holidays, businessmen rushing to appointments, and soldiers departing for distant posts. Today, much of the station remains active for occasional trains, but large sections feel abandoned, and visitors report experiences that suggest the past has not entirely left the building. Shadowy figures, phantom trains, and faint echoes of voices create an atmosphere steeped in history and mystery. Footsteps echo along corridors where no one walks, and the faint sound of luggage rolling over wooden floors can be heard in areas long since cleared of travelers. Whispers sometimes drift through waiting rooms, fragments of conversation that vanish when approached, leaving a lingering impression that the station remembers every moment that passed within its walls. Phantom trains are another hallmark of Carbondale Station's haunting. Witnesses occasionally see dimly lit carriages moving silently along the tracks, their windows revealing the outlines of shadowy passengers. These trains appear briefly, gliding into view before fading just as suddenly, as if caught between past and present. Some observers report feeling the subtle vibration of an invisible engine or noticing a sudden drop in temperature as the train passes, reinforcing the sense of an unseen, lingering presence. The train's appearances are fleeting, yet they leave a powerful impression, connecting the station's present with its past in ways that are both eerie and compelling. These subtle signs, combined with the visual and auditory phenomena, create a layered haunting that makes it difficult for visitors to distinguish between reality and the lingering echoes of history. Even the air seems imbued with memory, carrying faint scents of coal smoke, aged wood, and leather, evoking the presence of travelers long gone. The history of Carbondale Station sheds light on why it remains so active with spectral phenomena. For decades, the station served as a vital hub for the region, connecting towns and cities while witnessing countless farewells, reunions, and hurried departures. Accidents, sudden events, and the emotional intensity of travel may have left residual imprints that now manifest as shadowy figures and ghostly sounds. The layering of visual, auditory, and environmental effects creates a sense that the station is alive with memory, replaying the routines, gestures, and quiet moments of travelers long gone. Despite the eerie nature of these occurrences, most witnesses report feelings of awe and melancholy rather than fear, struck by the poignancy of ordinary lives preserved in time. Carbondale Station remains a place where the past and present coexist. Shadowy passengers glide toward empty carriages, old conductors' voices echo through deserted platforms, and phantom trains appear and vanish along the tracks. The building is more than brick and steel. It is a vessel of memory, preserving the gestures, routines, and fleeting moments of countless travelers. For those who linger after dark or explore its quiet corners, it becomes clear that Carbondale Station is alive with echoes of history, where moments long forgotten replay endlessly, and the spirits of travelers continue their journeys bound forever to the platforms, corridors, and tracks of the station. Bloomington Normal Station, located at the heart of central Illinois, is a structure steeped in history. Once a bustling nexus for travelers moving between Chicago, St. Louis, and smaller Midwestern towns, it has witnessed countless arrivals, departures, and farewells over the decades. The station's grand brick facade, tall windows, and wide platforms evoke an era when rail travel was central to daily life. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Bloomington Normal Station is the sound of phantom footsteps. The voices are rarely clear enough to discern fully. They speak in tones of hurried greetings, announcements, or quiet farewells. These trains move silently, arriving and departing as if on a schedule long abandoned. Shadowy passengers can sometimes be glimpsed through the windows, seated or standing as though the train is full, only to vanish entirely when the doors close. The appearance of these trains is often accompanied by the same whispers, footsteps, and cold drafts that characterize other spectral encounters in the station. The station's long history provides context for these experiences. Bloomington Normal Station was once a hub of activity, witnessing daily commuters, families traveling for holidays, and students moving between campuses. Trains were delayed, accidents occurred, and farewells were said in hurried moments, leaving emotional imprints on the building. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that these intense human experiences have created residual energy, replaying in subtle echoes visible to those who are sensitive to the station's history. Each spectral figure, whispered conversation, and phantom footstep may represent a fragment of life frozen in time, perpetually repeating in a space that remembers more than its current occupants realize. Even casual observers feel the weight of these presences. A solitary walk along the platforms at night can be unnerving, as footsteps seem to follow. Shadows appear just out of the corner of vision, and faint murmurs drift through empty corridors. They have witnessed the faint outlines of travelers preparing for journeys that will never happen, heard the soft echoes of voices once part of daily life, and felt the presence of those who remain bound to the station in memory. It is a haunting that is subtle yet profoundly affecting, a reminder that spaces can hold more than their physical form, preserving human experience in ways the eye alone cannot see. Bloomington Normal Station today stands as a place where the past and present coexist. Phantom footsteps echo along platforms late at night, faint voices of travelers drift through waiting rooms, and shadowy figures sit or stand silently, disappearing when approached. The building is more than brick, glass, and steel. It is a vessel of memory, a corridor through time where echoes of ordinary lives continue to play out. Decatur Union Station, once a vibrant hub of Illinois rail travel, now stands in quiet solitude. Its brick walls and arched windows tell the story of an era when trains were the lifeblood of commerce and community. The hum of activity that once filled the station has long since faded, leaving behind empty platforms, long corridors, and the faint traces of hurried footsteps and rolling luggage. Yet for those who linger after dark, the station is far from abandoned. Ghostly travelers and shadowy figures appear to move through the space, replaying fragments of lives and journeys that have long since ended. One of the most commonly reported experiences at Decatur Union Station involves ghostly travelers seen walking along deserted corridors. Visitors describe figures dressed in period clothing, from early 20th century suits and hats to coats and dresses typical of the 1930s and 1940s. These apparitions often move slowly and deliberately, pacing the hallways as if following invisible schedules. Some appear alone, clutching luggage or newspapers, while others walk in pairs or small groups, their movements coordinated yet detached from the living world. The figures sometimes pass through walls or disappear into shadows when approached, leaving behind only the faint impression that someone was just there. Platforms are another focal point of the station's hauntings. Some figures seem poised to board trains that no longer run, waiting patiently as though time has stopped for them. Witnesses report that these apparitions sometimes vanish when directly observed, leaving behind an empty platform and a lingering sense of presence. Visitors often report multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. A lone traveler walking through a corridor may hear footsteps approaching from behind, while a shadowy figure crosses a platform at the far end. The air may suddenly grow colder, carrying with it the faint sound of a train whistle or distant murmurs of conversation. Lights may flicker in sync with movement, highlighting the silhouette of an unseen commuter or accentuating the edges of a shadow gliding past a doorway. These layered experiences create an immersive sense of history, as if the station itself is preserving and replaying the lives that pass through its walls. Despite the intensity of these encounters, the spirits of Decatur Union Station are rarely described as hostile. Most apparitions appear to be residual imprints of daily routines rather than conscious entities. They move in repetitive patterns, silently enacting the roles they once played as travelers, conductors, or attendants. Observers often describe a mixture of awe and melancholy, struck by the poignancy of these echoes of ordinary life. The haunting is a reminder of the passage of time, and of the human stories that remain tied to the spaces we inhabit long after we have left. Even casual visitors to the station notice its unusual atmosphere. Rock Island District Station in Chicago is a relic of a bygone era, a place where the echoes of the city's bustling railroad past linger in shadowed corners and empty corridors. Once a hub for daily commuters, long-distance travelers, and freight transport, the station now bears the quiet weight of decades of disuse. Brick walls are cracked, paint peels from wooden beams, and windows are clouded with years of dust. Yet, beneath the stillness lies a presence that cannot be ignored. Visitors who venture into abandoned sections after dark report phenomena that suggest the station is far from empty. Spectral figures, phantom trains, and ghostly passengers appear to replay moments frozen in time, giving life to a station that, outwardly, seems forgotten. Abandoned corridors are a focal point of the haunting at Rock Island District Station. Shadowy figures are often reported moving along the hallways, their forms dark and indistinct, yet undeniably human. Some appear to pace silently, following invisible paths that stretch the length of the corridors, while others stand at corners, watching the empty platforms or disappearing into walls when approached. These apparitions are typically described as wearing period clothing, long coats, hats, or dresses that hint at travelers from the early to mid-20th century. Witnesses say the figures do not interact directly with the living, yet their presence is strongly felt, creating a sensation that unseen eyes are tracking each visitor's movements. The platforms themselves are not immune to spectral activity. Phantom trains are occasionally seen moving along tracks that no longer carry passengers. These trains appear translucent or faintly illuminated, their engines silent as they glide past platforms, leaving behind no sound but a palpable vibration in the air. Some witnesses report catching glimpses of ghostly passengers standing in rows or seated within carriages, frozen in time as if caught in the exact moment before departure. The experience is simultaneously mesmerizing and unsettling, as it blurs the line between past and present, reality and memory. Footsteps are among the most common and unnerving reports at Rock Island District Station. In empty corridors, the soft tapping of shoes echoes against brick and concrete, often following the rhythm of a hurried traveler. Some visitors feel the footsteps matching their own pace, trailing closely behind before vanishing into silence. Others hear the sounds approaching from adjacent hallways or distant platforms, only to find the spaces entirely empty when investigated. The footsteps, like the shadowy figures, seem to replay routines once common in a station alive with human activity, preserving motions that have long ceased in the living world. The auditory phenomena extend beyond footsteps. Ghostly whistles and the hum of phantom engines have been reported, particularly during the late evening hours when the station is quiet. The faint clatter of wheels on tracks, the hiss of brakes, and the sound of doors opening and closing echo through platforms and corridors, often coinciding with sightings of shadowy passengers or spectral figures in motion. Whispered voices, sometimes indistinct, but occasionally recognizable as conductor calls or travelers conversing, drift across the station, vanishing when anyone tries to locate their source. These sounds combine with the visual phenomena to create an immersive experience that makes it impossible to ignore the station's lingering history. Even environmental factors enhance the sensation of haunting. Sudden drafts sweep across the abandoned corridors and platforms, carrying a chill that contrasts sharply with the otherwise still air. Flickering lights cast long shadows that stretch and shift unnaturally, occasionally forming shapes that resemble waiting passengers or station staff. Benches and luggage racks sometimes appear subtly displaced, suggesting that unseen individuals have recently occupied them. All of these elements contribute to a sense that the station is a living memory, preserving moments of everyday life, farewells, and hurried arrivals long after its physical use has diminished. Historical context provides insight into why Rock Island District Station is so active with apparitions. For decades, it served as a central hub for commuters, travelers, and freight operations. Accidents and delays were common, and countless stories of rushed goodbyes, lost connections, and sudden departures are woven into the station's history. Paranormal researchers suggest that the intense emotions and energy of these moments may have left residual imprints on the building, manifesting today as spectral figures and phantom trains. Each appearance, each sound, may be a replay of a moment trapped in time, endlessly repeating within the station's walls and on its tracks. Multiple phenomena often occur simultaneously. Visitors may witness a shadowy figure pacing a corridor while hearing the distant hum of a phantom train, lights flickering above them, and the faint sound of voices drifting through the empty space. The combination of visual, auditory, and environmental anomalies creates a layered experience that is both haunting and mesmerizing. It is as if the station itself has become a vessel for memory, replaying snippets of its past for anyone willing to notice. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the spirits of Rock Island District Station are rarely described as threatening. Most apparitions seem residual rather than conscious entities, performing the routines they once carried out while alive. The figures appear caught in a loop, silently walking, waiting, or standing as though frozen in time. Visitors often report a mixture of awe and melancholy in these encounters, struck by the poignancy of ordinary moments made eternal by the station's memory. Even casual visitors feel the presence of the past at Rock Island District Station. The echo of footsteps, glimpses of shadowy passengers, the silent glide of phantom trains, and the soft whisper of voices all combine to create an experience that is impossible to forget. The station is more than a building. It is a living repository of history, where the comings and goings of travelers are preserved long after the last real train has departed. Rock Island District Station stands today as a space where past and present coexist. Its abandoned corridors host shadowy figures, phantom trains move without sound along empty tracks, and ghostly passengers are seen standing or seated as if frozen in time. The station is not merely a relic of transportation history. It is a vessel of memory, a place where echoes of human life continue to unfold. For those who wander its platforms after dark, it is clear that the station is alive with the presence of a bygone era, a haunting reminder that even in stillness, the past never truly leaves. These apparitions are often described as wearing vintage clothing, from coats and hats typical of the early 20th century to long dresses and gloves worn by women traveling decades ago. They move deliberately, pacing the edges of platforms or standing silently, waiting for trains that no longer arrive. Witnesses sometimes see them pausing to glance down the tracks, adjusting imaginary luggage, or gesturing to companions who are never seen. When approached, these figures often vanish into thin air, leaving only the faintest imprint of motion or a sudden chill in the surrounding air. Phantom footsteps are another pervasive phenomenon at Elgin Station. The most dramatic experiences, however, involve phantom trains. Witnesses frequently report seeing the faint outlines of locomotives and carriages appearing briefly on the tracks, illuminated by the dim glow of platform lights. The flickering of overhead lights often coincides with sightings of figures or phantom trains, highlighting shapes only for them to dissolve when attention is focused. Doors may creak or swing slightly as though pushed by unseen hands, and benches occasionally appear subtly displaced, suggesting the recent presence of someone invisible. For decades, it served as a vital hub, hosting daily commuters, families on holiday, and travelers moving between Chicago and the wider region. Accidents, sudden departures, and the rush of people passing through created intense emotional energy, leaving traces that may now manifest as residual hauntings. Paranormal investigators suggest that these experiences are not necessarily conscious spirits, but echoes of repeated routines and human interactions preserved in the building's atmosphere. Each shadowy figure, every phantom footstep, and ghostly train sighting can be interpreted as a moment of history replaying itself, frozen in time, yet perceptible to those present. Visitors often describe multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. While walking along a deserted platform, one might hear footsteps approaching from behind, see a shadowy figure pacing near the far end, They move in repetitive patterns, silently enacting the roles they once performed, waiting for trains, pacing corridors, or boarding carriages. Witnesses often report a sense of awe or melancholy rather than fear, struck by the poignancy of ordinary lives frozen in time. There is a quiet dignity to these hauntings, a sense that the station is preserving the memory of countless travelers who passed through over the decades. The combination of ghostly figures, phantom trains, faint footsteps, and environmental anomalies transforms Elgin Station into more than a physical space. It becomes a vessel of memory. Those who walk its platforms after dark often feel the weight of countless past journeys, the rush of hurried commuters, and the quiet anticipation of travelers long gone. The building is not merely a relic of transportation history, but a living repository of memory, preserving the routines, gestures, and moments of travelers long since departed. For those who linger after dark, it is clear that the station is alive with the presence of a bygone era, and that even in its quiet and abandoned state, the past continues to move, waiting for anyone who dares to witness it. Moline Station, located along the banks of the Mississippi River, is a structure that carries the weight of decades of travel and history. Once a bustling hub connecting Illinois with the surrounding region, the station now stands largely quiet. Its brick and steel architecture, a reminder of an era when rail travel dictated the pace of daily life. The auditory experiences at Moline Station are equally compelling. Phantom footsteps echo along the platforms and through empty corridors, sometimes following visitors in perfect synchrony with their own pace. The sound is unmistakably human, yet no one is present. At times, faint whispers can be heard, snippets of conversation, the hurried calls of conductors, or the laughter of children, all drifting through the station as though carried from a distant past. Some report hearing the soft creak of doors opening and closing, or the rolling of luggage across wooden floors, adding to the sense that the station is alive with echoes of travelers long gone. Phantom trains are another recurring phenomenon. Witnesses often catch glimpses of dimly lit locomotives gliding silently along the tracks, their carriages empty or filled with shadowy passengers. The trains appear briefly, sometimes emerging from the distance and then fading before reaching the platform. The experience is disorienting, as if time itself bends within the station. Those who observe the trains describe the sensation of watching history unfold in fragments, a moment of the past replaying itself in the present. Even the air itself seems different in the abandoned areas, carrying faint scents of coal smoke, aged wood, or leather from a time long past. For decades, the station was a hub for commuters, long-distance travelers, and freight operations. Countless lives intersected within its walls, businessmen rushing to appointments, families embarking on holidays, soldiers departing for training, and everyday citizens navigating the rhythms of daily life. Accidents, sudden departures, and hurried farewells left emotional imprints that may now manifest as residual haunting. Paranormal researchers suggest that these echoes are not malevolent spirits, but rather imprints of human activity, moments replaying endlessly in a place that remembers more than the living perceive. Visitors often experience multiple phenomena simultaneously. While walking along a deserted platform, one might hear phantom footsteps approaching from behind, see a shadowy figure pacing at the far end, and catch a fleeting glimpse of a ghostly train appearing on the tracks. Whispered voices may drift through nearby corridors, blending with the creak of doors or the soft rustle of invisible luggage. Sudden cold drafts heighten awareness, intensifying the feeling of being observed by unseen travelers. The combination of visual, auditory, and environmental anomalies creates a layered, immersive encounter that blurs the boundaries between past and present. Despite the eerie nature of these events, the spirits at Malign Station are rarely described as threatening. Most apparitions appear residual, caught in repeated routines rather than consciously interacting with the living. Observers often report a sense of solemnity and reverence rather than fear, struck by the poignancy of these echoes of ordinary life. The station itself becomes a vessel of memory, preserving the gestures, motions, and quiet moments of countless travelers long gone. Even casual visitors feel the weight of the station's history. The combination of shadowy figures, phantom trains, whispered voices, and cold drafts transforms Malign Station into more than a physical space. It becomes a living repository of human experience. Those who linger after dark often leave with a heightened awareness of time, history, and the countless journeys that intersected within its walls. Malign Station remains a place where past and present coexist. Rockford Depot, nestled in the northern reaches of Illinois, is a historic station that carries the weight of decades of travel and human activity. Built in the early 20th century, it was once a bustling hub where travelers from across the region gathered to board trains heading to Chicago, Milwaukee, and points beyond. Its brick walls, vaulted ceilings, and long platforms were witnesses to countless arrivals and departures, farewells and reunions, hurried steps, and quiet moments of anticipation. Today, though modern trains occasionally pass through, much of the depot stands quiet. And it is within this stillness that visitors report experiences that hint at a past that refuses to stay buried. These figures are often described as wearing early 20th century attire, men in suits and hats, women in long coats and dresses, sometimes holding small parcels or handbags. Attempts to approach them usually result in their sudden disappearance, leaving behind an empty bench and an eerie sense that someone was just there. Phantom trains are another phenomenon commonly reported. Visitors have seen faint outlines of locomotives and passenger cars gliding silently along the tracks, their wheels making no sound as they approach the station. The trains appear briefly, often with ghostly passengers visible through the windows, dressed in period clothing, and then fade away before reaching the platform. The experience is both mesmerizing and unsettling, creating the impression that the station exists outside the usual flow of time. The trains seem to replay historical departures, frozen in motion yet tangible enough to evoke the rhythm and atmosphere of a bygone era. The auditory experiences at Rockford Depot are equally compelling. Phantom footsteps echo through empty corridors and along deserted platforms, sometimes pacing in sync with the steps of visitors. Some report hearing the faint rolling of luggage across wooden floors, while others hear whispered voices drifting through the hallways, fragments of conversations, conductor calls, or the laughter of children long gone. The sounds appear to emanate from specific directions, yet vanish when investigated, reinforcing the impression that the depot is alive with echoes of the past. These auditory phenomena often accompany sightings of shadowy figures, creating a layered experience of sight and sound that makes the station feel fully inhabited by its history. Environmental anomalies further heighten the haunting atmosphere. Cold drafts sweep through corridors and along platforms without warning, often coinciding with the appearance of phantom figures. Visitors have reported sudden chills that contrast sharply with otherwise calm conditions, reinforcing the sense of unseen presence. Flickering lights cast moving shadows that sometimes form humanoid shapes, accentuating glimpses of travelers frozen in time. Benches or luggage racks may seem subtly displaced, suggesting the recent activity of invisible passengers. The combination of cold air, shifting light, and environmental disturbances contributes to a fully immersive haunting, making it difficult for visitors to ignore the depot's lingering past. The historical context of Rockford Depot provides insight into why it is so active with residual phenomena. For decades, it served as a major hub for regional travel, hosting daily commuters, families embarking on vacations, and long-distance travelers moving between cities. Countless farewells, reunions, and rushed departures occurred within its walls, leaving emotional imprints on the station. Accidents and sudden events added layers of intensity, which, according to paranormal researchers, may manifest today as shadowy figures, phantom trains, and unexplained sounds. These experiences are often interpreted not as malevolent hauntings, but as residual echoes of human life, replaying in subtle yet undeniable ways. Visitors frequently report multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. While walking along an empty platform, one might see a shadowy figure seated on a bench, hear footsteps approaching from behind, and catch a fleeting glimpse of a phantom train appearing briefly along the tracks. Whispered voices drift from nearby corridors, sometimes blending with the creak of doors or the subtle rustle of invisible luggage. The layering of visual, auditory, and environmental anomalies creates a sense that the station is alive with memory, replaying the routines, gestures, and small moments of travelers long gone. Despite the intensity of these encounters, the spirits at Rockford Depot are rarely described as threatening. Most apparitions appear residual, performing repetitive actions rather than interacting with the living. Witnesses often report a mixture of awe, melancholy, and quiet curiosity, struck by the poignancy of ordinary lives replaying endlessly. The figures on benches, the phantom trains, and the echoes of voices serve as a reminder of the countless travelers who passed through the depot, preserving a sense of human history that remains palpable even in absence. Even casual visitors sense the weight of the station's history. The station serves as a bridge between past and present, where fleeting moments of human life continue to resonate long after the physical bustle of rail travel has ceased. Rockford Depot remains a place where the past walks alongside the present. Shadows of travelers wait silently on benches. Phantom footsteps echo along empty corridors, and ghostly trains appear briefly, fading before they reach the platform. The building is not merely brick and wood, but a repository for memory, preserving the lives, routines, and small gestures of those who once passed through. For those who explore its deserted halls and platforms after dark, it becomes clear that the depot is alive, with the echoes of history, where moments long forgotten continue to replay, and the spirits of travelers carry on their journeys, bound forever to Rockford Depot. Aurora Terminal, once a thriving center of rail travel in northern Illinois, now sits mostly abandoned, a relic of an era when trains were the arteries of daily life. Its brick walls, high ceilings, and sprawling platforms echo with the memory of hurried commuters, families saying farewells, and travelers awaiting departures. Witnesses describe dark, indistinct shapes gliding along platforms, walking corridors, or appearing near stairways and exits. These figures are often humanoid, though their features remain blurry or undefined. Some seem to pace slowly, as if following routines from decades ago, while others stand motionless, as if waiting for something that will never arrive. Flickering bulbs are reported along corridors and in waiting areas, casting shifting shadows that seem to animate the space. Auditory phenomena are equally compelling. Many visitors report hearing faint conversations in empty halls, murmurs that rise and fall with no apparent source. Phantom footsteps echo through corridors, sometimes following visitors as they explore the abandoned sections. Doors may creak open or shut without any visible cause, and the distant sound of a train whistle occasionally drifts through the terminal, adding to the sense that the space is alive with activity long gone. The history of Aurora Terminal helps to explain why it is such a hotspot for paranormal activity. For decades, the terminal was a vital hub for daily commuters, long-distance travelers, and regional freight operations. The faint conversations, footsteps, and flickering lights all reinforce the idea that the terminal is a vessel for memory, a place where the routines, gestures, and small details of daily life are preserved long after their human origin has passed. Witnesses often leave with a deep sense of connection to the history of the space, as if glimpsing the lives of countless travelers long forgotten. Environmental effects enhance the haunting experience. Cold drafts sweep through corridors and platforms without explanation, often coinciding with the appearance of shadow figures. Windows, long grimy from years of neglect, reflect movement that seems to belong to another time. Benches and luggage racks may appear subtly disturbed, hinting at invisible activity. Even the scent of the station seems infused with the past, a mixture of aged wood, coal smoke, and the faint perfume of travelers from a century ago. These sensory details contribute to the feeling that Aurora Terminal is more than a building. It is a repository for the echoes of human life. For casual visitors, the terminal's abandoned sections can feel simultaneously eerie and mesmerizing. The combination of shadowy figures, flickering lights, phantom footsteps, and faint voices transforms the space into a living memory. Those who linger after dark often find themselves immersed in a scene from the past, sensing the coming. Its past continues to move, replaying endlessly, bound forever to the station itself, and to the echoes of the countless travelers who once called it their gateway to the world. Joliet Freight Station, once a bustling hub of commerce and transportation in northern Illinois, now stands as a quiet monument to a bygone era. Its massive brick walls, rusted steel beams, and cavernous loading docks are remnants of a time when the station thrummed with activity. Freight trains arrived daily, carrying goods and passengers, while workers hurried to load and unload crates, signaling the rhythm of industrial life. Today, much of the station is abandoned, and in its silence, visitors report a presence that cannot be explained. Phantom trains, shadowy figures, and mysterious sounds suggest that the station is far from empty, replaying the echoes of those who passed through decades ago. The most common reports at Joliet Freight Station involve shadowy figures moving among the tracks and empty crates. Visitors describe dark silhouettes pacing the loading docks, bending as if handling invisible cargo, or standing silently as though waiting for trains that never come. Some witnesses report seeing figures dressed in early 20th century work clothes, overalls, caps, and gloves, typical of freight handlers of the era. Others have described travelers from the same period, waiting along deserted platforms or near the edges of tracks. These apparitions appear aware of their surroundings, but vanish when approached, leaving the space eerily empty, yet charged with presence. Phantom trains are among the most startling phenomena. Witnesses often report seeing the faint outlines of locomotives and carriages gliding silently along the tracks. These trains appear dimly lit, without any sound of engines, brakes, or wheels. And oil, enhancing the sense that the trains are still present, even when unseen. Auditory phenomena accompany these visual experiences. Visitors report the soft clatter of crates being moved, footsteps echoing along empty corridors, and the faint hum of machinery long silenced. Whispers drift through hallways, sometimes resembling fragmented conversations among workers or travelers. Paranormal experts suggest that these events create a kind of echo, preserved in the architecture and energy of the station. Shadowy figures, phantom trains, and faint sounds are often interpreted not as malicious spirits, but as replayed moments of human activity, frozen in time, yet perceptible to the living. And the spirits of workers and travelers continue their journeys, bound forever to the rails, platforms and corridors of this forgotten hub. Union Station Annex in Chicago stands as a silent monument to an era when rail travel defined the rhythm of the city. Once part of a bustling network of tracks, platforms, and waiting rooms. This section of the station now lies mostly abandoned, its grand architecture echoing with the ghosts of travelers long gone. The brick walls and vaulted ceilings, once filled with the clatter of footsteps and the hum of conversation, now seem to hold a quiet, spectral energy. Visitors who venture into the annex after hours report a range of paranormal phenomena. Shadowy figures pacing along platforms, phantom trains gliding silently on empty tracks, and faint whispers carrying the names of people who passed through decades ago. The most commonly reported experiences involve shadowy figures moving along the platforms. Witnesses describe dark silhouettes appearing near benches, along the edges of the tracks, or in the corners of waiting areas. These figures often seem unaware of the living, repeating routines from a time when the station was fully active. Some appear to pace back and forth, as though awaiting an arrival or departure, while others stand motionless, gazing down the tracks or at empty carriages. The figures often wear period clothing, hats, coats, and dresses typical of early 20th century travelers, suggesting that the spirits are echoes of the station's most frequent visitors. When approached, these figures often vanish, leaving behind a faint sense of presence and the memory of movement that feels almost tangible. Phantom trains are another recurring phenomenon. Witnesses report seeing dimly lit locomotives gliding silently along the tracks, sometimes accompanied by carriages filled with shadowy passengers. These trains appear only briefly, often emerging from the darkness before disappearing before fully reaching the platform. Some observers describe the lights of the trains flickering in the gloom, casting shadows that seem to move independently along the platform. The absence of sound, no wheels clattering, no engines roaring, no brakes squealing, adds to the surreal nature of these apparitions. Despite their silence, the presence of these phantom trains is undeniably felt, leaving a lingering sense of the activity and anticipation that once filled the station. Auditory phenomena at the Union Station Annex are equally compelling. Visitors often report hearing whispers drifting through empty corridors, sometimes calling the names of travelers long gone. Faint footsteps echo along the platforms and in the hallways, sometimes following visitors in perfect rhythm with their own movements. Occasionally, the distant sound of a train whistle or the clatter of luggage rolling across wooden floors can be heard. Even though no living train or passenger is present, these sounds seem to come from every direction at once, creating an immersive atmosphere that makes it difficult to distinguish between the present and the echoes of the past. Environmental anomalies often accompany these apparitions. Cold drafts sweep across platforms and hallways without explanation, sometimes coinciding with the appearance of a shadowy figure or the flicker of a phantom train. Light behaves unpredictably in abandoned areas, casting elongated shadows or illuminating figures briefly before they vanish. Doors may creak open or swing slightly on their own, and benches or luggage racks occasionally appear displaced, suggesting the recent passage of someone unseen. Even the air itself seems infused with history, carrying faint scents of coal smoke, aged wood, and the perfume of travelers from another century. These sensory details reinforce the sense that the annex is alive with memory, preserving the moments of life that unfolded within its walls. The historical context of the Union Station Annex adds weight to these encounters. For decades, it served as a critical hub for both passengers and freight. Witnessing thousands of daily arrivals and departures, families said hurried goodbyes, business people rushed to catch trains, and travelers awaited their destinations with anticipation. Accidents, sudden farewells, and the constant motion of people left emotional imprints on the station. Imprints that paranormal researchers suggest may be preserved as residual haunt. Each shadowy figure, phantom train, and whisper can be interpreted as a replay of history, moments frozen in time yet perceptible to the living. And catch a brief glimpse of a ghostly train gliding along the track. Faint whispers drift through hallways, sometimes calling a name, sometimes carrying fragments of conversations that sound eerily familiar. The combination of visual, auditory, and environmental experiences creates a layered encounter that blurs the boundaries between past and present, leaving a lasting impression of the station's spectral activity. Despite the intensity of these experiences, the spirits of the Union Station Annex are rarely described as threatening. Witnesses often report feelings of awe, melancholy, or quiet curiosity rather than fear. Even casual visitors sense the weight of the station's past. Those who linger after dark often feel the presence of countless travelers moving through the space, reliving their routines, farewells, and quiet moments. Union Station NX remains a place where history walks beside the present. These are the haunted train stations of Illinois, where ghost passengers linger, footsteps echo in empty corridors, and phantom trains move silently through forgotten tracks. Each station tells a story of lives interrupted, journeys unfinished, and spirits that never truly left. If you ever find yourself at these stations late at night, watch the platforms. Shadowy figures may appear beside you, whispers may brush past your ears, and the air may grow inexplicably cold. The dead may ride the rails, but their presence is closer than you think. Thank you for exploring Illinois haunted stations with me. Stay cautious, stay curious, and always respect the ghost passengers who travel long after their time.